This is Congress WTV, the web station that seeks to facilitate and expand personal relationships between the viewing public and the representatives that they place in power, where you, the viewer, can directly correspond with the legislators that are seen on this show, as well as any and all legislators throughout the world. It's our goal to create an avenue of communication that will break barriers of location, nationality, and culture, bringing about a really true sense of our global community, one where the ideals of personal wealth, protection of minority rights, and mutual respect can be discussed and engaged in a public forum. I'm very pleased to have and welcome a dear friend of mine, Congressman Jim McGovern. He's the Vice Chairman of the House Rules Committee, as well as the co-chairman of the Human Rights Caucus. Good to have you here.
Happy to be here.
When I introduced you and said something about Rules Committee, the average public doesn't understand what the Rules Committee is all about. Right. What is the Rules Committee?
Well, the Rules Committee actually is one of the most powerful committees in the United States House of Representatives. The Rules Committee is the traffic cop of Congress. Every major bill that goes to the House floor first has to go to the Rules Committee. And the Rules Committee decides whether the bill could be amended or not, whether you have to vote up or down on it, or whether you could have different points of view be offered on the House floor. It decides how many amendments, which amendments, or sometimes it says it has to be a closed rule. The Rules Committee also has the power to rewrite legislation if need be. That's a power that the committee rarely uses. But if you read the history of the Rules Committee back in the 1960s, the head of the Rules Committee was not such a nice guy. He was a strict segregationist. He used to block everything.
I remember.
Yeah,
I was here.
Yeah. Well, but the Rules Committee main purpose is to help advance the agenda of the Speaker of the House and of the party that's in power.
But that really, as you say, it's an extremely important committee, because the way you craft the rule really determines how the legislation will go forward.
Right, and it's a committee that is probably the most contentious committee to serve on, because the party in power wants to move a bill one way, and the party that's not in power wants to figure out a way to obstruct the bill. So, a lot of the battles on the process and the procedures occur in the Rules Committee. But having said that, I go back to what I said before, and that is the primary responsibility is to move legislation forward, to get things done. Mm-hmm. We don't have a filibuster here in the House. We have the Rules Committee to prevent that, to actually, move legislation forward and bring it to the floor, and it either goes up or down.
Well, unfortunately, I'm getting a call here. I didn't even realize I didn't turn it off. I want to ask you today: is the Rule Committee very political now?
Well, it's very contentious because look, the Democrats who are in power, don't have this huge. Number of seats that it's still pretty narrow between the Democrats and Republicans, and I think that one of the unfortunate things, and I say this as a Democrat, is the Republicans are trying to use the process to obstruct legislation. I mean, their goal is to get us to get nothing done, so they can go to the American people and say, hey, you gave them a chance, they didn't get anything done. My job and our job on the Rules Committee is to move bills to the floor in a way where we can get things passed and move them forward.
But you also can put in a rule that there are no amendments.
We can, and sometimes we do. On very important bills that that a lot of work has gone into kind of crafting it. Again, what we want to do is make sure it moves forward. I mean, again, if you open everything up, the party that is not in power might say, "Look, we could amend this to death." We could add extraneous and superficial measures to it that would destroy it. And again, I hope someday we can get to a point where, we all get to the point where whether you agree with the bill or not, that there's an understanding that our job here is not to obstruct. No one's job is to obstruct. It is to legislate. Mm-hmm. And I think the more there's a feeling up here that legislating is the priority and not obstructing, I think the more open the process will become.
Is there any truth to the fact that because of certain rules that are made to get legislation to the floor, it contributes to the earmarking?
No, I mean, a lot of the earmarking is done in committee, as you know, very few projects are actually amended on the House floor. But oftentimes, when bills come to the floor, we allow for amendments for people to strike earmarks. You know, if somebody had an earmark, like another bridge to nowhere or whatever, most of the time, we have a process in place that allows, at least most of the time, for members to be able to, strike it if they want to, and at a minimum have a debate on whether the project is worth anything, and then everybody votes yes or no on it.
Mm-hmm. On the whole question of rules, what have you got coming up now? Well, before the end of the session.
Well, we have a lot of different things coming up. We have a bunch of appropriations bills that are coming up. We have an energy bill that we're trying to craft to bring to the floor to try to take into consideration the very diverse opinions within the Democratic caucus and within the Republican conference on what do you do about this energy situation. So we're trying to craft an omnibus energy bill, if you can, to move to the floor, and we hope to do that. There will be other issues that will come up before we recess, but it's a busy 3 weeks that we have coming up.
Do you think anything is really going to come out of it now until the end of the session?
Look, we may have a lame duck session. It's not clear, but look, part of what I hope will happen in the last few months of the Bush presidency is that maybe he might want to work with us. He hasn't wanted to work with us for 8 years. He may not want to change in the last few months. But I think there's a lot that we have in common, and there's a lot that we can get done that's good for the American people. So I'm not totally willing to write off these last few months. I hope there are times that we not only pass things in the House, but they'll pass things in the Senate, and that the President will sign a few things. Mm-hmm. Again, our job up here, whether we're Republicans or Democrats, is to try to improve the quality of life of the people in this country, to try to make the world a better place. And so you can have partisan differences. I have no problem with partisan differences. What I do have a problem with are people who are not interested in getting anything done, but simply want to obstruct. And I'm hoping the President these last few months may want to work with us so we can get some things done. Not everything we want, not everything he wants, but stuff that will make people's lives a little bit better.
Well, if the election proves such that the Democrats get a greater majority in the House, will it help to move certain areas, health legislation?
Yeah. Look, here's my dream, and we're speaking before the election. My dream and my hope is that we'll elect more Democrats to the House of Representatives, that we'll elect enough Democrats to the Senate that we have 60 votes, because as you know, the Senate is useless unless you have 60 votes. Mm-hmm. And I hope that Barack Obama becomes the next President of the United States. If all those things happen, then we may be on the verge in this country of an era as bold and dramatic and forward-thinking in terms of what we can accomplish as the New Deal or the Great Society. We have big problems. They require big solutions. Health care reform, getting this deficit under control, the war in Iraq, ending the war in Iraq,